Welcome back to our channel where we share updates and untold stories about Catherine, Princess of Wales, and her royal family. Today we bring you some news. Breaking. King Charles declares war. $50 million claim against Meghan explodes. Suddenly, and without any previous warning, the video appeared on the official website of the British royal family, giving the impression that a digital ghost was haunting the site. A scene was shown in which a king looked down the barrel of a camera from a room in Windsor Castle that was dimly lit. The king appeared to be untidy rather than royal as he looked down the muzzle of the camera. This was not a Christmas address, and it was most certainly not a statement regarding the state of the nation. Additionally, that statement contained an admission of guilt, a declaration of war, and the sound of a dynasty cracking under the pressure of its own secrets. All of these elements were incorporated in the statement. King Charles III, who has spent his entire life waiting to succeed to the throne, has begun a legal and public assault against his own daughter-in-law, Meghan Markle. This assault is being carried out against Meghan Markle. It is his youngest son, Prince Harry, who is on the verge of collapse, and he accuses her of being involved in an extortion scheme that is worth $50 million. A constitutional and familial inferno that threatens to engulf what is left of the House of Windsor has been started as a result of this single act, which has done more than just damage the carefully produced facade of cohesion that the monarchy has established. This inferno threatens to engulf what few members of the House of Windsor remain. How could a monarch, who is considered to be a paragon of Stoic tradition, possibly be motivated to carry out an act of revenge that is so extreme, so well known to the public, and so unprecedented as this? The answer can be found in a toxic cocktail of broken promises, claimed extortion, and the emotional anguish of a family that has finally and permanently turned against itself. This is where the answer can be found. The crown, who is at war with himself, is of the king. A credo that is both straightforward and extremely powerful has been the guiding principle behind the unwritten constitution of the British monarchy for many decades. This creed states that one should never complain and should never explain. It was the mantra that Queen Elizabeth II adopted to guide her through 70 years of political uncertainty, personal tragedy, and intense scrutiny from the public. She carried it with her throughout her whole reign. It was believed that the mystique of the monarchy, and consequently its ongoing survival, was based on an impenetrable wall of silence during her reign, which was a masterclass in regal opacity from the very beginning to the very end. The television message that King Charles III delivered was not the only thing that allowed him to break through that wall. He also used a sledgehammer to blast through the very foundations of the construction. According to insiders within the palace, who spoke on the condition of anonymity, the agonizing discussion that took place over the course of several weeks leading up to the decision was described in detail. They say that the king, who was flanked by his heir, Prince William, and his wife, Queen Camilla, grappled with a decision that set his inclinations as a father against his holy duties as a sovereign. This decision was reported to have been difficult for the king to make. The attitude was described as funereal by a senior lawyer who expressed the sad understanding that the family would be permanently injured regardless of the settlement of the matter. The council also emphasized the gloomy realization that the family would be irreparably hurt. According to the testimony of the insider, it felt like lancing a boil. The poison, as the palace now sees it, was a series of growing financial demands from Meghan's team, which were tied to the increasingly imminent separation from Prince Harry. The palace now regards it as a poison, excruciatingly painful but absolutely necessary to prevent the poison from spreading further, the palace told reporters. The film had a tremor of tremendous melancholy and steely resolution with Charles's voice, which is often a stronghold of measured calm. In the video, Charles's voice was laced with this tremor. It was a political earthquake when the admission was made. As he began, the words appeared to become stuck in his mouth. "I must concede," he said, "that welcoming Meghan into our family was a grave error of judgment." The disclosure was a political earthquake. There has never been a period in the history of contemporary times when a reigning monarch has admitted to making such a terrible error in front of the camera. This particular event has never occurred before. In order to seize control of a narrative that had been spiraling out of control for years, driven by tell-all interviews, scathing memoirs, and a relentless transatlantic war of words, it was a deliberate act of self-flagellation with the purpose of seizing control of the narrative. The narrative had been deteriorating out of hand for a number of years. Those who study constitutional history are in a state of shock, drawing similarities not to the reign of his mother, but to much more chaotic episodes in the history of the royal family. They are thinking that this is a more appropriate comparison. An urgent circumstance that posed a threat to the very life of the crown was the abdication of Edward VIII in the year 1936. The refusal of Edward VIII to relinquish Wallis Simpson, who was a divorcee from the United States, was the root cause of this issue. Furthermore, it was an issue of state that was settled in the shadows, and it was handled behind closed doors. This was done in order to maintain confidentiality. On the other side, Charles has made the decision to take the opposite strategy and employ transparency as a weapon. By bringing his case before the court of public opinion and simultaneously bringing it before the High Court of Justice, he is taking a chance that the organization he is in charge of is sturdy enough to bear the consequences of his actions. This danger is a risk that he is willing to take. He is placing his bets on the idea that the general populace will not perceive him as an angry father-in-law, but rather as a defender of the realm. A king who is driven to take action in order to save the monarchy from an existential threat. He is betting on this idea. As a consequence of this high-stakes gamble, the monarch is transformed from a distant and symbolic figure into an engaged and deeply wounded player in the public drama that his family is experiencing. This results in a reframing of the relationship that exists between the monarch and the public. $50 million is the question that needs to be answered. An amount of $50 million is at the core of this royal eruption, which is a quantity that is just spectacular and specific at the same time. The attorneys who are defending the palace have stated that this is not a straightforward request for a divorce settlement. According to the lawsuit that was submitted in London, it is the focal point of an extortion campaign that is based on manipulation and coercion. The lawsuit was filed in London. This figure was allegedly sought in a series of private communications that took place over the years 2024 and 2025, with the implicit threat that failing to comply would result in the publishing of new disclosures about the royal family that may potentially be more damaging. Each of these communications took place in private. The allegations that this amount was demanded can be found in the court files, portions of which have been made available to certain media sources. Legal observers have described the argument that was presented by the palace as a strategy that has a high level of risk, but also a great potential payoff. For the purpose of establishing blackmail, the counsel for the king need to do more than just show that a significant sum of money was sought. They also need to demonstrate that the request was accompanied by threats, which are threats that are intended to compel the crown into doing something. Blackmail is a form of cyberbullying. A treasure trove of intimate family letters and unpublished drafts from Prince Harry's memoir, Spare, are said to be the purported leverage, according to insiders who are familiar with the files. Additionally, the purported leverage includes unpublished drafts of the memoir. According to an explanation that was supplied by a legal expert who was not engaged with the case, the threat is not merely about telling stories that are embarrassing. Because of this, it jumps from being a contentious divorce to being a problem of national security. It is about information that has the potential to damage the standing of the monarchy, its relationships with other states, and the personal reputations of its most senior members, according to the statement. According to the allegation that was made by the palace, a comprehensive breakdown of the $50 million sum itself has been presented. It is estimated that approximately $20 million will be allocated for the division of property, $15 million will be allocated for the ongoing and future security and educational costs of the couple's children, Archie and Lilibet, and the remaining $15 million will be allocated for what is known as reputational compensation. This final category is the one that has caused the most eyebrows to be raised. As a sort of compensation for the lost potential to earn money and the psychological toll that her time spent in the royal family has put on her, the team that Meghan is working with will most likely argue that it is a type of compensation. The palace, on the other hand, asserts that this is a price that must be paid in order to maintain silence. The following is an excerpt from an email that was leaked and included in the court records. A comprehensive resolution ensures mutual silence and protects all parties from future disclosures. If this resolution is not in place, it is possible that a different truth that is more widely known to the public would emerge. The divorce that Charles's own parents went through is evocative of this financial conflict that Charles is experiencing. When Charles divorced Princess Diana in the year 1996, he presented her with a lump sum payment of £17 million, which is equivalent to more than £40 million in today's currency. Diana was stripped of her title of Her Royal Highness, which was a move that caused her a tremendous deal of emotional grief. On the other hand, the arrangement was carried out in full secrecy, and as a consequence, Diana was stripped of her title. As the current conflict is being fought in the full glare of the mainstream media throughout the world, every legal action and strategic leak is being amplified over the internet. This is because the internet is a global platform. According to the claims that were made by her representatives, Meghan's position is that these conversations are not blackmail, but rather typical, hard negotiations that take place during a separation of a kid with a significant net worth. The legal team representing her is currently working on a full counter-narrative in order to portray the case as an attempt to harass and suppress a woman of color who dared to confront an outdated institution. This is being done in order to portray the lawsuit as a patriarchal and spiteful attempt. It is predicted that they would argue that the demands for protection are not a kind of leverage, but rather a horrible necessity that has emerged as a result of the palace's own failure to protect her and her children from serious dangers. This is something that is expected to be argued by them. It is a prince who is sorry for the prince. Caught in the brutal crossfire is Prince Harry, the man Charles described in his statement as having returned to the United Kingdom emotionally exhausted and worn down. He is the tragic figure at the center of this saga, a prince whose lifelong search for peace and purpose has led him to this impossible precipice, torn between the woman he loves and the family he was born to serve. Those who are close to the Duke have reported that it is a scary picture of a guy who is breaking apart. This information comes from someone who is close to the Duke. It is now commonly accepted that his recent trips to the United Kingdom on his own, which were initially considered to travel for philanthropic activities or family memorials, were actually desperate attempts to find solace and mediation among himself. This belief has gained widespread acceptance in recent years. Despite the fact that he has been observed, he is not frequently heard. The photographs taken of him during the preparations for the Invictus Games show that his smiles are artificial and his eyes look to be devoid of any spark of life. His cousins, Princesses Beatrice and Eugenie, who have maintained a bridge over the uncertain waters, have reportedly provided him with counsel, and he has apparently found sanctuary in the quiet corners of his past life. He has reportedly met with old acquaintances at London pubs that are inconspicuous and has sought guidance from them. Additionally, it has been alleged that he has sought sanctuary in the secluded areas of his previous life. There were exchanges with his father and brother that were harsh and brief, conversations that were heavy with the weight of blame and condemnation, and relationships that were completely devoid of the warmth that he so obviously seeks. These are all described in the sources. He is exhausted from playing peacemaker between two worlds that refuse to coexist, said a confidant who declined to be named. He is exhausted from playing peacemaker between two worlds. According to his point of view, he is failing in every conceivable capacity. The fatigue that Harry is feeling is not just the effect of jet lag or the stress that he is facing in his marriage. Rather, it is the culmination of a lifetime of painful experiences. Throughout his memoir, he detailed the profound and long-lasting effects that the death of his mother had on him, as well as his struggles with mental health and his perception of being the spare to the person who would receive the estate. Psychologists that specialize in trauma-related issues believe that his current predicament is an anticipated outcome of these unresolved wounds being made worse by the conflict that is currently taking place. This is the belief in the field of trauma-related psychology. In the present moment, he is stuck in a predicament of allegiance that is of a dreadful magnitude. Being faithful to his wife is the same as betraying his father, and vice versa. There is no other way for him to provide for his father but to give up his wife. His presence in London puts him in a situation that is emotionally and legally risky during the period of the case in which preparations are being made. This is because the case is currently in the phase of preparation. He has the potential to be a key witness for any side, and the testimony that he offers might be incredibly detrimental to the case from any perspective. Within the narrative that has been offered by the palace, Harry, a cherished son who was fooled by a manipulative marriage, has been purposefully positioned as a victim. This is because the palace has positioned Harry as a victim. When Charles made the decision to publicly identify his son's vulnerable condition, it ended up being a move that had both positive and negative consequences. In spite of the fact that it had the effect of eliciting a flood of public sympathy for Harry, it also stripped him of his agency and portrayed him as a participant in a larger game. According to friends of the prince, it is not Meghan who has broken him. Rather, it is the constant pressure and the perceived coldness of the institution that he left behind that has caused him to break down. In spite of the fact that he is currently locked in a different kind of prison, one that is made up of court papers, public condemnation, and the excruciating weight of conflicting loyalties, he is a man who has worked hard to achieve his freedom. The most human and sad part of this royal tragedy is the metamorphosis of the prince from a defiant and fun-loving character into a worn-out and troubled one. This transformation is the aspect that is the most agonizing. In the Monteceto, actions that are considered to be counter, the response to the king's declaration of war has been nothing short of exhausting in the sun-drenched enclave of Monteceto, California, which is situated on the opposite side of the Atlantic Ocean from the United States. With the speed and accuracy of a crisis management team that has years of experience, Meghan Markle's camp has started a strong and deliberate counteroffensive that is aimed at entirely recasting the narrative. The goal of this counteroffensive is to fully recast the narrative. It was determined that the claim of blackmail was ludicrous and defamatory, and it was a desperate attempt at smearing that originated from an organization that was terrified of a woman who was powerful and independent. Her strategy is multi-pronged, consisting of a combination of robust legal action and a shrewd public relations campaign combined together. Her approach is multifaceted. High-powered Hollywood attorneys who have prior experience fighting celebrity battles against established power organizations are currently working on preparing a response that will not only challenge the monarchy's charge of blackmail, but will also attack the monarchy's reputation. They have served in similar battles in the past. They are expected to claim that the communications that were mentioned by the palace were regular conversations about divorce, and that the lawsuit itself is an abuse of power, a form of strategic litigation that is intended to intimidate and silence a critic. This is something that is expected to happen. Their line of reasoning will be that Meghan is entitled to tell her story, and they will depend heavily on the protections that are granted to individuals who are free to express themselves. All of the allies have been activated at this point. Her narrative is currently being bolstered by those who have previously provided platforms and support for the Sussexes, like as Oprah Winfrey and Tyler Perry, amongst others. Opinion pieces are being published, and podcasts are being produced, and they are all communicating the same message. This is not about money. It is about control. Individuals who are loyal to the Sussex Squad have been the driving force behind social media campaigns that have gone into overdrive. Due to the fact that these campaigns have called attention to the racial and misogynistic undertones that they perceive in the coverage of the British media, they have also linked this case to the maltreatment that Meghan claims she endured while working as a royal. With regard to the palace's financial situation, her staff is making an effort to disprove the story of desperation that is being presented by the palace. They are pointing to a strategic pivot despite the fact that they have acknowledged the early issues that their Archewell Foundation has had, and the fact that they have lost a high-profile collaboration with Spotify. Both of these things have occurred. A successful and forward-thinking profession that is independent of the royal household is being positioned as evidence of both the introduction of her new lifestyle brand, American Riviera Orchard, and the anticipated projects that she will be working on for Netflix. Both of these events are being positioned independently of the royal household. Rather than being depicted as an unreasonable demand, the sum of $50 million is described as a just and vital settlement that is designed to guarantee the long-term protection of her children in the face of recurring security worries. This is the case because the settlement is intended to guarantee the safety of her children. Specifically, she asserts that the royal family has made these threats even more severe by denying them the protection to which they are legally entitled. This battle is not only within the bounds of the law, but it also takes a huge toll on one's reputation. As a result of her unyielding position, Meghan is portraying herself as a David who is going up against the Goliath of the British establishment. She is defining herself as a contemporary woman who is taking on an ancient institution. The narrative in question is one that not only resonates strongly with younger generations in the United States of America, but also with younger generations all around the world who are becoming increasingly cautious of authority that has been passed down through generations. A unique home. The case has strengthened palace-based groups. The inner group, which includes King Charles, Queen Camilla, and Prince William, who is becoming more combative, believes this strong strategy is necessary to preserve the monarchy. The inner circle agrees this tough approach is required. According to the research, William, the heir apparent, is the most pro-law advocate. He is said to be determined to eliminate the Sussex threat completely. This is reportedly because he has seen the devastation caused by his parents' long-standing competition. He believes this Sussex threat threatens his future rule. This organization controls the narrative, including distributing material to favorable media outlets and portraying the war as a vital defense of the institution against an unprecedented inside attack. However, a looser and more covert union of Sussex sympathizers exists. This category includes a few younger royal family members, former staff members who remain dedicated to Harry and Meghan, and friends who are spreading a counter-narrative about a cold, disagreeable, and anxious family. Instead of lawsuit, they advocate reconciliation, citing Harry's decline as evidence of the palace's callousness. They also claim reconciliation is the only solution. The atmosphere is mistrustful. Initial legal negotiations revealed allegations of hacked emails and phone calls. This has heightened mistrust on both sides, escalating the crisis. It's a war for the British monarchy's soul, not merely a family dispute. War is raging in Britain. The King's lawsuit has compelled every member of his family and the UK's citizenry to take a stand. A judicial victory for the King might set a precedent that would end royal dissent and strengthen the crown. This would set a strong precedent. It would be a Pyrrhic victory because it would lead to the irreversible separation of his only son and establish the monarchy's brutal and unforgiving reputation worldwide. Both outcomes would happen. Losing, however, would be disastrous. This would boost monarchy critics' confidence, validate Meghan's claims that she is being persecuted, and potentially open the floodgates to other revelations that would further erode the public's trust in the monarchy, its only currency. Charles III's legacy, which was to focus on modernity and climate change, will now be defined by one bold act. This deed will define Charles III's legacy. His legacy will show whether he was a brave king who saved his palace or a terrible parent who sacrificed his family to defend his crown. History will decide which of these personalities he was. Even though it hasn't started, the House of Windsor decision may have been decided. Thank you for watching the video. Please let us know your thoughts, and goodbye for now.